Hi there, this is Love Johar. Thank you so much for watching this video and thank you so much for tuning into this channel. This is a very important video for all of you out there who want to understand how to comply with the new Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023. These are all the suggested steps that we will be discussing in this video. What all you need to do as a company, as an organization. So please watch this video very carefully. And if you have any comments, feel free to ask in the comment section. So this is a video where you will be understanding in depth how to comply with the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, which has been introduced in 2023 in India. So to comply with the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, you need to implement a privacy information management system. Now, what is a PIMS? What is a privacy information management system? So a privacy information management system is nothing but a framework which is has been introduced for managing the collection, use, disclosure, and storage of personal data. Okay, because as you can see, the act that has been introduced is related with the personal data. So that's why you need to understand the use of privacy information management system. Okay, how it will help you? It will help you to ensure that your personal data in your organization, which is processed in a fair and lawful manner, and it is protected from unauthorized access, use, or disclosure. Okay, so these are some suggested steps that we will be discussing in this video that you can follow in order to make sure that you comply with the requirements. Okay, now you must be thinking how we can comply. So one way to comply would be to do a control mapping, because most of the organizations out there would already be having some compliance frameworks in place like GDPR. Okay, and standards like ISO IC 27701. So if you have these frameworks already aligned in your organizations, please note this very important tip. You can do a control mapping, friends. So if you do a control mapping, you can identify the controls that you need to implement to meet the requirements of the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. Not all the controls would map, I can assure you that, but I will show you some examples which will help you understand how this mapping can be done. Because some of you out there who are new to this, field and are beginners, so you must understand how to do the control mapping also. We will discuss in this video. So another way to comply with the Digital Personal Data Protection Act is to follow the ISO IC 29100 mapping. Okay, now what is this standard? This standard provides guidance on how to implement a PIMS that complies with international privacy standards. Okay, including the obviously the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, because it also talks about the personal data. Okay, hope it makes some sense. Now what are the steps that you need to take as a organization to map your controls? Okay, so first of all, you have to understand and identify the requirements of the act that apply to your organization once the act has been in force in maybe 2024, because right now it is just in the draft stage. The implementation guidelines have not yet been produced. So this is a framework which will help you in order to adapt. Okay, and then you can review your existing controls. Like I already mentioned, if you already have the compliance frameworks in place, then you need to review them and you need to understand which ones meet the requirements of the DPDA, which is nothing but the Digital Personal Data Protection Act. Okay, identify any gaps in your controls and implement new controls or modify the existing controls to fill those gaps. Okay, accordingly you can map your controls to the requirement of the DPDPA Act and to ISO IC 27701 and ISO IC 29100. Okay, and document your control mapping and keep it up to date so that you can show your compliance with the act. Now, once you have done the mapping of your controls to the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, you can use this mapping to create a compliance framework, guys. This is very important. So this framework should include your controls as well as your procedures and policies that you have in place for implementing and maintaining those controls. Okay, now you must be thinking how to do the mapping. Okay, as I said, in this video we will see two examples of doing the mapping. So as you know, the basic requirement of the Digital Personal Data Protection Act, you all know that personal data must be processed in a fair and lawful manner. So in order to do that, you need to implement a control. What should be the control? The control should be to implement a data protection policy that sets out the organization's procedures for processing the personal data. Okay. Now, if you already have the ISO IEC 27701 control in place, which is nothing but A.11.2.1, you already must be having the information security policies in place. Okay. Similarly, if you have ISO IEC 29100 control, you must be having 6.1.1 established privacy policies and procedures. That's why I said, if you already have these frameworks in place, these guidelines in place, it will help you to do the control mapping. Okay. Then how is the procedure? What should you do now? Procedure here is to the make sure that the data protection policy should be communicated to all your employees and contractors and any of the third party suppliers, or anybody who's part of the stakeholders of your organization, and they should be trained on how to comply with this policy. Okay. And the data protection policy should specify how the organization will collect, use, disclose, and store the personal data. It should also specify how the organization will protect the personal data from unauthorized access, use, or disclosure. So if you have these controls already in place, take a look at this very carefully. You don't have to do the entire thing again. This type of control mapping will help you and save you a lot of time. Okay. Similarly, the other requirement of the Digital Personal Data Protection Act is very basic again. Individuals must have the right to access their personal data. It is a basic requirement again. And similarly, you can see the control is there, which is to have implement a procedure for individuals to request access to their personal data. And now if you have ISO IEC 27701 control already in place, it already talks about individual access requests. And similarly, ISO IEC 29100 control also talks about individual access requests. So similarly, if you have these controls in place, the procedure simply should specify how individuals can submit a request for access, and these procedures would already be in place. Okay, friends. So you don't have to do this again. That's what I'm saying. So by following all these steps, you can, in short, create a compliance framework which will help you to align with the new data protection policy. So I hope this video makes sense to you. And again, if you have any questions, if you have any follow-up comments, feel free to ask in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.